Hey guys, Pete here from Furniture by Pete, and today we're going to make a nice quality set of cornhole boards. We're going to laser a logo on the front of these, we're going to clear coat it, start to finish. Let's get to it. So the first thing I did was grab my plywood. I decided to go with 3/4 inch maple plywood. I know a lot of people use 1/2 inch, but I really wanted to build a good quality set of cornhole boards, so I decided to go with 3/4. I made a mark at 48 inches, which is the overall length of the cornhole boards. I grabbed my Milescraft track saw, put it on the line, grabbed the clamps to secure it just to make sure that it didn't move, and gave it a rip. With it ripped to the proper 48 inch length, now it was time to get the width, which is 24 inches. So I made a mark at 24 inches on each end and basically repeated the same process. Make the mark, set the track on it, and give it a rip. Now that I have two pieces, 24 by 48, I'm going to measure for the 6-inch hole. I'm going to measure down 9 inches, then measure over 12, and that's going to be the center of the 6-inch hole you're going to cut out. I decided to cut the circle out on the CNC, so I set up the CNC clamps so I could secure it. Gave it a few passes and it cuts out a perfectly clean circle. You could also do this with a hole saw or even a jigsaw. But this obviously is a nice, easy, clean way to do it with very minimal cleanup on my end. And now it's time for the fun part that's really going to set these cornhole boards off. I'm over at the Thunder laser machine and I took the front off so I could feed the pieces in. I'm using a big square here from Milescraft to square the piece against the frame just to make sure that I'm perfectly straight. And now I'm doing a framing of the logo just to make sure, again, that I'm even on each side. And according to the ruler here, I look really good. So I'm good on the ruler, good on the square. I've got my depth set. So now let's start burning. The beginning part I was really monitoring closely, not just because I wanted to make sure it was a really clean burn, but I wanted to make sure that I had my power set correctly because I didn't want to burn down too deep. I wanted to go down just a little bit so that you could see the logo, but not enough that it would affect the gameplay itself when you throw in the bags. With the laser running there in the background, I decided to cut up the pieces needed for the frame. I grabbed my 2x4s and I cut out 4 pieces at 48 inches in length. I'll admit my OCD and anxiety definitely got the best of me, so I went back to the laser just to double check again to make sure that it was burning perfectly. And zooming in here, you can see it is super clean. The depth is perfect. I could not have been happier with how this was coming out. And this is it for this board. With this done, now it's time to take this out and do the same thing for board number 2. With board number 2 lasering in the background, I came back to the miter saw to cut up the remaining pieces needed for the frame. These, however, are only cut to rough length, and you'll see why in a minute. OCD alert, back over at the Thunder laser to make sure it's burning properly. I then took all 8 pieces over to the jointer so I could flatten a face and square an edge. As I said earlier, I really wanted to build a good quality set of cornhole boards, and this step is going to help me get a good square flat frame for the top to lay on. The push block that you see me using is the Milescraft Grabber Plus. This is my favorite push block. The size of it is really substantial and it really gives me great security and stability when I'm running the pieces through. OCD and anxiety alert once again, people. Yep, back over here checking on it. And again, burning perfectly, exactly what I hoped for. Actually, if you want to know the truth, way better than I hoped for. With board number 2 done, it was time to transform the jointer into planer mode. And as you can see here, the Rikon transforms in seconds. And now I'm going to run these through to make the top side parallel with the side that I flattened earlier. Now it's time to head over to the table saw to make the last side parallel with the side that I edge jointed earlier. Here I'm using the Milescraft Grabber Pro this time. This is perfect for the table saw, keeps my fingers completely away from the blade, and again the size gives me incredible security and stability running these through. If you remember earlier, I only rough cut the length on the short pieces, and that was because I knew I was going to run it through the jointer planer, and the final length could only be determined after I had the final thickness. Now that I have that, I cut them the final length, and now I have a perfectly square 24 by 48 frame. Dry fit looks perfect, so now it's time to add some pocket holes, which will be the way that I'll attach the top to the frame. I grabbed my brand new Milescraft Pocket Jig 400. This thing is awesome, all metal construction, adjusts perfectly to exactly what I need, and I had these pocket holes banged out in no time. I clamped the frame in place, grabbed some pocket screws, 1.25 inch length, secured it, and this board was ready for some legs. Back over at the miter saw, cutting up for the legs, I determined that my legs needed to be 11.25 inches long with an 11-degree angle at the bottom. Remember, the boards have to be 12 inches off the ground, and I used 3/4 inch plywood, not 1/2 inch plywood. I just so happened to have lasered a glass that had a radius pretty close to what I needed for these legs. It wasn't perfect, but it was close enough. In the end, I had to do a little bit more sanding than what I wanted to, but I'll learn for next time. Hit them up over here on the bandsaw, then sanded them down on the oscillating belt sander, and these legs were ready to go. When it came time to attach them, I was using these brad point bits from Milescraft. I love brad point drill bits. They drill absolutely perfect and clean. Highly recommend them. I'm using 1/2 inch bolts, and these worked absolutely perfect. With the leg secured, I grabbed a small Pilot 1/8 inch roundover bit. It's the perfect bit just to break the edge. It doesn't give you a huge roundover, but it's enough to soften the edges. Gave it a final sanding with 320 grit, and these were ready for poly. I'm using General Finishes Enduro Clear Poly. This stuff is absolutely amazing. It lays perfectly every single time. I sanded lightly by hand 320 in between coats. After 3 coats, these boards were glass smooth. And here's the final result. What do you guys think? Personally, I had so much fun on this project, and it really makes it worthwhile when it comes out exactly like you envision, and I really hope you guys enjoyed the process. So that's it, guys. Thanks very much for watching today's video. Now let's go have some fun. See you next time.